I'm Alice McKenzie, and I direct the Perkins Center for Preaching Excellence at SMU. Today I have with me Dr. Shauna Hannon. She is professor of homiletics at Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary in Berkeley, California, and the author most recently of The People's Sermon, Preaching as a Ministry of the Whole Congregation. She has a special interest in how the craft of screenwriting, filmmaking, and the craft of preaching can help one another, especially help preaching from filmmakers. With us also is Gail Chandler, film editor, instructor, and author of several books on film editing with attention-grabbing titles like Cut by Cut, Editing Your Film or Video. I mean, a lot of preachers could use the cut by cut, I would say, myself included, and more recently, Editing for Directors. So welcome, colleagues, and I understand that the two of you are working on a book which will be the third volume in the Preaching And series, co-sponsored by our center and Westminster John Knox Press, which will come out, what, in the fall?
Fall or spring or winter of 23-24.
Yes, in its season, it will come out, right? And perhaps to coincide with the second coming of our Lord, who knows? Right? So the book is co-sponsored, as I say, by Westminster John Knox and our center, and it's the third volume. And in the meantime, is the reason that we're here today. In the meantime, the two of you are collaborating on a workshop that will be held on April 17th here at Perkins, face-to-face workshop called "What Preachers Can Learn from Filmmaking." I'm very excited about this. I wish I could have been like a little mouse in the wall. I'm sure you've had some fascinating conversations about the topic. So did you two know each other before you began collaborating on this?
No, we did not. And I can briefly say how this came about. I've been thinking about this for, 10, 15 years, thought I should write a book. And your Preaching And series is perfect because I knew as a preacher, but not a filmmaker, that I should be co-authoring with a filmmaker. So I started, actually, it was on a hike. I was mentioning it to somebody here in Marin County. I was on a hike at Mount Tam, mentioned to somebody, I'm working on this, but looking for a filmmaker. And this person said, well, I know a filmmaker. And that's how I was led to Gail. And so I emailed Gail, we got together, and that just felt right. And it's been just a lovely partnership. I need Gail.
Mm-hmm. It's like almost like that joke, a filmmaker and a homiletician walked into a room, right?
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
Yeah, I had taken a lot of hikes with this person and had some really good talks. And it's been a thrill because filmmaking really is about collaborating. And this has really, truly been a terrific collaboration of two different worlds. And you just never know where filmmaking or I'm learning preaching will take you.
Right. So I guess from each of your perspectives, you have insights into what filmmaking can offer preachers. Or the way I think of it, think about a filmmaker sitting in the congregation listening to a sermon and yearning for them to incorporate the principles of filmmaking. So maybe from each of your perspectives, give us a sense of what the workshop will offer.
Sure. Gail, do you want to start?
What filmmaking can offer preaching?
Well, there's one of those sayings that, there's only 7 stories. And I think you go to a film and sometimes you know how it's going to end. Sometimes you don't, but it's how you get there. And I'm learning that really applies to biblical stories too. And another piece of it is point of view. In filmmaking, you can tell the same story from different points of view, sometimes in the same film or TV show. Mm-hmm. So I think we're bringing that to it. And the other thing that we've really been looking at, that filmmakers really think about the audience. How is this going to affect them? Are they going to have an audience? And, for a continuing series or the movie or the documentary. So we've looked a lot at, and we'll be talking a lot about impact.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is something that we try to think about as preachers. We sometimes don't give enough attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
My little poodle just loved what you said. She just
Okay.
gave a little happy growl, if there is such a thing. I would add to that, yes, Gail, and that awareness of the hearer in preaching, that's not new. I mean, we know this in homiletics. We know this, but what interests me is why. I mean, we're in a world where people have cinematic literacy, whether they know it or not. They know how a film is impacting them. And then they go out after the film and they chat about it. And we put all this work into preaching, hoping that it'll have an impact, but then nobody talks about it. And people might actually say, well, I don't know what to say about that. I'm not a preacher. Well, people aren't filmmakers either, but they talk about it. I'm so interested in that. What is that? And so I think, let's capture that cinematic literacy. Let's actually go deeper and see if we are literate cinematically. Likely we're just on a superficial level. Let's take advantage of that and say, are there any equivalents in preaching? And I think one of the equivalents might actually be, well, Gail's already mentioned impact, the hope for impact. She's already mentioned collaboration. I think preaching really is a collaborative endeavor. It's a baptismal call. We're the priesthood of all believers, but we put the task on one person.
Right.
And yet it has an impact on multiple people, and we hope worlds beyond that. So how do we do that? One thing that we'll do in the workshop is to dig into and view, and we'll watch a few film openings. The establishing shot, and look at, why would a filmmaker begin with a close-up? Why would we begin with what Peter might have thought just as he's about to sink? As opposed to, wow, we've got this landscape of far away of Golgotha. We know something's going to happen as Jesus is on his way. So what's the difference there? How does a filmmaker choose? Why does the filmmaker choose? And we, even though we don't have the visual medium necessarily, we can do that with our words, a close-up or a kind of broad, wide shot.
Right. And being more intentional about it. You notice I was adjusting my camera earlier because I realized it was way too high. So I was doing point of view. I was bringing it down.
That's right. Good.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited about this workshop. Is anything you wanted to add, Gail, before I remind everybody of when it is?
I think we have some really exciting scenes that we found that really do bring you in and make you think about how do films immediately engage us. And basically we want to answer that question that they're raising right in the beginning, is what's going to happen, but not just in terms of plot, if it's a really good film, in terms of theme. And I think there's a lot of correlations to what preachers do.
Yeah. And then we'll look for some insights about how to end well, which is not an easy thing either, right?
Exactly.
Well, as I said, I'm very excited about this. I've long realized, kind of learning the hard way, that lofty abstractions, no matter how noble, do not necessarily lodge in people's imaginations and hearts the way that images and stories do. So I am excited about participating in the workshop, and I'll just remind viewers that it is April 17th of this spring. It's at Perkins. It's a face-to-face workshop, and sign up. Go to our Perkins Center for Preaching Excellence website, and you'll find a refresher on those details and how to sign up. And thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you here at Perkins in a couple months. Thank you.